Okay. Okay, so welcome, Shyam, to our, oh yes, I have to hit the button. Okay. Okay, now I'm gonna start again. Welcome, Shyam, to your presentation on Einstein and environment. We talked, I don't know, it was like 6 months ago about how you were a recipient of the Einstein Fellowship to work at the Einstein Forum in Potsdam, correct? And you stayed in Einstein's house in Caputh for 6 months and to learn more of the connections of Einstein to the environment that you're going to talk to us about today. So I'm really excited to hear what you have to say. And just for everyone here, Shyam said that because of his internet limited bandwidth, he's going to turn off his video while he's speaking, but then he'll turn it back on when he's going to be talking because he's going to give a presentation. And now I'm going to hand over the floor to Renata, who organized everything for this meeting today. Renata Bantamir is responsible for our Einstein meetings. You want to give a couple words? Maybe if you come.
Hi, hello, Sam. Hi. We wrote the last week, and now we see us. Yes, it's nice that we can see us now, and we are very, very interested to hear from you now. Please start.
Thank you for lovely introduction. I think I only met Nancy virtually and Renata through text, and all of you all I did not meet or know about. But I'm very happy to see all of your faces smiling, and it's already a very warm welcome. So maybe I will start the presentation now, and I'll keep the video off. One thing that I wanted to clarify is that I stayed at Einstein House, but I worked on a project which was on foundations of science, purely on foundations of science. But the talk that I am giving is very close to my heart. This is an experience that I have felt staying at Einstein House and reading about Einstein all my life. So I would like to share with you all what I felt and what I think about what Einstein thought about environment. So maybe if some of you can confirm that you're hearing me well, I will turn off my, yes, okay. So, okay, so I will share my screen. You can see the screen well, right? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So this talk, I think, should be better worded as what I thought of what Einstein thought about environment. That meta level would have made more sense. But let me start by thanking you all for inviting me to address you on a topic which is close to our heart and quite relevant to modern times. My association with the Discovery Center at Ulm started with an email I sent to Nancy. She took out time from her schedule and ran me through the organization structure and the goals. And I'm very grateful to her and to the entire organization for the same. At the end of the call, Nancy asked me if I had any feedback, and I immediately realized the need for having sustainability as one of the pillars of organization, since Einstein realized the need for this way before he could witness the full effects of global warming. In what might follow, I might outline what I thought Einstein thought about the environment and mention some of the anecdotes and his own views about the topic. This all started during my stay in Albert Einstein's house in Caputh near Potsdam. I was selected as an Albert Einstein Fellow by the board of Einstein Forum for this year 2020. Though due to the pandemic, I could only start my fellowship in 2021. This was a dream come true for me since I admire Albert Einstein a lot. And this is also a house where he met the Indian poet Rabindranath Tagore. Einstein tried his best to avoid idolatry of his identity. So he did not wish his house to become a museum. So when the time has come, Lorraine Daston, who is now a director emerita at Max Planck Institute for Wissenschaftsgeschichte, has suggested that house can be used to house intellectual and interdisciplinary discussions and conferences. And it can also be used to house a scholar who can stay there and do research for a particular time period. The board of Einstein Forum, along with its director, Susan Nyman, who lectured, I think, at Ulm a while ago, have been taking care of the house and putting it to good use that would please Einstein's spirit. Now back to the house. Einstein was not only an intellectual nomad roaming across various areas of intellectual landscape, but was a real nomad without a permanent address. Only once did Einstein try to build a house, and the beginnings were very surprising. On his birthday, the mayor offered the celebrity of the town, Einstein, to have a house gifted to him by the lakeside so he can do his research peacefully in the heart of nature. Einstein, though grateful for the offer, did not foresee what would happen to such a proposal. Given his Jewish origins and the political scenario at the time, the proposal for his house kept on getting postponed. Even when they finally managed to find a piece of land, it happened to be occupied by someone else, and Einstein did not wish the previous owners to be disturbed for the sake of his own house. When the gift was not given, finally, Einstein wrote a letter to the mayor stating in his own words, "Life is too short and the affair concerning my honorary present has lasted too much long for me now to be able to accept it." With that, he decided to buy the land and build the house by himself from whatever money he had from the Nobel Prize, after offering a huge sum to Mileva Merrick, of course, for their diverse settlement. The couple, along with a young freelance architect, Konrad Waschmann, built this marvelous house, which has a unique design for its time. I refrain from quoting too many anecdotes, but the history of the house is very interesting. For instance, how young Konrad Waschmann approached Elsa and so on. Einstein loved his house and Caputh so much that he called it a paradise. He even wrote a beautiful invitation to his son Eduardo. This is what the lake near the house. He said, "I like living in this little house enormously, even though I am broke as a result. The sailing ship, the distant view, and the lonely walks in the autumn, the relative silence, it is a paradise." So Einstein wrote this to his sister in 1929, and this is the lake right next to his house where you can go through the forest. And this is a very beautiful poem that he wrote to his son. And you all know German better than me, way better than me. So I think you can enjoy his poetry, which is also quite unconventional and quite witty. He enjoyed his time there so much, away from the hustle and bustles of the city and without a telephone to bother him. He would take long walks in the forest, collect mushrooms, and think about problems in physics as well as in society equally. Because he was almost broke by the time he finished building this house, with enough money to left to purchase bread for several weeks maybe, he chose to lecture all around the world during winters and enjoy the pleasant summer in Caputh, and that became a tradition. That's why it's called a summer house, because he used to go around the world in winter and only return there in the summer. One is the fact that he enjoyed having a telephone without having one. And that is very interesting. He often borrowed the telephone from his neighbor. The man who set up the framework for analyzing space and time and the universe also set up a signaling system for the telephone using a small trumpet. A long trumpet call by the neighbors mean that the call was for Einstein, and the short one with multiple notes mean that it was for his family members. He often was bare-chested and dressed very informally during his stay. When dignitaries come to meet him, his wife Elsa would nudge him to get dressed up in a suit, but he would reply, if they wish to see me, bring them here. If they wish to see my clothes, take them to my closet. Einstein also had a neighbor, the great reform pedagogue, Gertrude Feiertag, Jewish principal who hosted a lot of children. And this was the Jewish land school in Caputh, right behind the Einstein house. She used to rent his house for housing students, and students lived there with teachers, and they had their own curriculum. Each teacher would teach the students what they know, and that's all about it. So a lot of goalless learning and creative exploration happened in this house, which is next to Einstein House. One of the notable faculties of this school was the great physicist Ernst Ising. This is, as you can see, Albert Einstein's house. And Albert Einstein used to rent this house to this school during the summers. And you can see the students on the left cleaning the stairs and taking care of the house. And also on the same spot where Einstein used to sit. And that was in the lawn where Ising is teaching some mathematics. There are some pictures where some teacher was teaching them some music and so on. And one of the touching incidents was this principle emphasized a lot on holistic development of the individual, so much so that at one point when Hitler started to take these people to concentration camps, there was a student who was just spared because he knew a lot of music. So this student is still alive, and that's because the principal that time stressed on arts as equally as she stressed on science. So this was an interesting anecdote. Einstein had such a charged history, and Einstein House has such charged history, and Einstein loved staying there for a long time. He met many notable scholars and thinkers, but Einstein foresaw the rise of Hitler and he could move out, and also advised his neighbor Gertrude Feiertag to move out to USA. But she wanted all the Jewish children to be safely transported to England at her own expense, and she did not want to move out of the house even after repeated pursuits. Eventually, and unfortunately, she was taken to Auschwitz. Here you can see the list of scholars who came and visited Einstein House and stayed there. On the left is Rabindranath Tagore, and with Elsa and other Einstein family members at the back. And on the right, you see from the Einstein's bedroom and his work table, standing Erwin Schrödinger, who discussed on various topics, including the unification of physics. Now, what do we learn about the person by dwelling in his space? I think this is a non-trivial question in the domain of cognitive science. With more reflection, we have been unraveling the connections between our environment and our cognitive processes. What did I learn about the personality of Einstein by staying in Einstein House in the freezing winter and taking walks in the forest that he dwelled in? Apart from my research project, which is concerned with the foundations of sciences, I learned a lot more. Learnings that will last a lifetime. I learned about interconnections. In a letter to the grieving father, Rabbi Marcus, who is Einstein's friend, Einstein writes, "A human being is a part of the whole, called us by universe. A part limited in space and time. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. The striving to free oneself from this delusion is one issue of true religion. Not to nourish the delusion, but to try to overcome it is the way to reach the attainable measure of peace of mind." This was a letter he wrote to his friend when his friend told him about the death of his son. Though this was in no sense a confirming letter or a comforting letter, as a koan or a snapshot of reality, it has a lot to teach us. Staying at Einstein House all alone in the middle of the forest without any being around, in the still winter that resembles a painting, I developed a deep connection with nature which I did not have access to living in Mumbai. I spent hours and hours listening to the trees and understanding the language of silence. What would we do with all our knowledge about black holes and galaxies? Don't have rivers and soil, I asked myself. We surely cannot survive on eating the thick textbooks and treatises we published about the universe. Can we? Suddenly, a huge blind spot got unveiled in front of my eyes. With all our collective IQ and intelligence, we still are struggling to save this tiny planet. There's a discrepancy in the proportion of knowledge we have discovered and uncovered versus the way we show up in the very world. I promised myself that I don't try to bear the slightest pretense to inquire about those aspects in science and philosophy that I don't otherwise inquire in the depths of my heart. I would try my best to keep my heart and mind together. Interestingly, in Chinese language, the character for heart and mind is same. Xin, as it's pronounced, is called heart-mind. So if you want to communicate about the word heart or mind in Chinese, you don't have two different words. You have to say something like heart-mind. And I think in some words in German are also like that. This is a sort of a unified picture way before Descartes, where he separated mind from the body from the environment, and so on. Emotion and reason in Chinese language and in many other languages were not considered separate, but rather coextensive. Qin is as much cognitive as it is emotional, being simultaneously associated with thought and feeling. This already sets some stage to discuss the interconnections between things. Einstein, like Spinoza and Kant, believed in the interconnected nature of things and systematic unity of cosmos, discoverable on empirical grounds. How do we recognize this intricate interconnectedness of things in daily life? Let us take today's event as an example. For this event to happen, there are literally millions of supporting causal factors, from the fact that the ground we are sitting on is stable, thereby the electrons are following Pauli's exclusion principle and not collapsing into each other. Nancy's parents met each other. My parents met each other in right time. Nancy's taxi driver who drove her did not run into somebody else. His eyes are working well, which means the food he ate was actually digested well, which means that the food was not poison. His wife cooked food well. The farmers produced the food well. The farmers ate well. The rain and sunshine happened. That led to the growth of the crops and so on. If we carefully meditate, it seems to me as if the entire universe is present in this one single event, this conversation. This fact has become very evident to me in my childhood when there was an outbreak of conjunctivitis. I don't know the German word for this, but it's an eye infection which is very contagious. One person gets it and the whole city gets it, where you just have red eyes for a period of time. Everyone in the school was affected by conjunctivitis, and they were lined up to receive antibiotic drops in their eyes. And along with us and our teachers, our bus driver happened to stand in the queue as well. Some teachers complained that they received their eye drops first and drivers and other people receive it later. But later that evening, being on the bus with 100 other people, I suddenly decided and realized that my survival depended upon the rods and cones of the eye retina of the driver. So this was the case with the teacher who even complained earlier and who is now traveling in the same bus.
Shyam, can I interrupt you a little, please? You're getting faster and faster. Can you please slow down a little bit? Thank you.
I'm extremely sorry.
Thank you, because I am sure some people are not understanding what you're saying. So please keep a little bit slower.
Okay, so
thank you very much.
Did you follow?
I followed everything, but I'm sure there's someone not following. Thank you.
Okay, so maybe I will become very slow. Okay, so maybe I will repeat a little bit about the eye infection. This fact became very evident to me in my childhood when there was an outbreak of conjunctivitis in my school. Everyone in the school was lined up to receive antibiotic drops. And of course, our bus driver was standing in the line as well. Some teachers complained that they receive the eye drops first and the drivers and the supporting staff have to receive it later. Later that evening, being on the bus with 100 other people, I realized that my survival depended upon the rods and cones in the eye of the driver. Somehow earlier, I realized that the eye of the driver is outside of me and I'm not connected to it. But when I sat in the bus, I realized it's as if entire people who are sitting in the bus are sharing the rods and cones in the retina of the driver. So we have a collective ownership of his rods and cones. But when we step out of the bus, we think that the driver's eyes are not relevant to us. We can carefully see that there are millions and millions of background causes that we carefully filter out, and all these subtle details go into the background, and we only identify the effective causal parameters and get on with our daily life. But that does not mean that these background parameters are not there. We think we are independent of these things, and it's up to us to pronounce the word independent the way we like. Independent or independent. That gaps makes all the difference. Independent and independent. Einstein very much knew about the limits of the scientific method. As you can see in the quote, he said that the content of the scientific theory offers no moral foundation for the personal conduct of life. When Einstein was asked in an interview by a reporter, Dr. Einstein, why is it that when the mind of a man has stretched so far to discover the structure of atom, we have been unable to devise the political means to keep the atom from destroying us? Einstein replied, that is simple, my friend. It is because politics is more difficult than physics. How then do we conduct our lives and do our science in such a way that we preserve these sacred interconnections all the time? When I was young, FM radios were in great demand. Unaware of electromagnetic waves at that time, I always thought there is a small, tiny man living inside the radio and is speaking, a childish analog of the homunculus theory of mind. When my parents were not around, I finally ripped the radio apart to only find circuits, magnets, screws, and bolts. There was no tiny man inside the radio. While the curiosity led me halfway, I could not holistically reassemble the radio into a functioning unit. Thereafter, I could only play with magnets and make shapes with aluminum wires, none of which could replace the original beauty of the radio. This was my shocking experience with aimless, freely floating curiosity. Many years later, I wonder if our scientific and philosophical endeavors and curiosity belong to this kind. With the goal of curiosity to understand cosmos, we may rip it apart to the level of nuts and bolts. We can still play with them and make good technology and so on. But can we reassemble our notions of cosmos to preserve the holistic interconnections? Can we still enjoy the beauty of lakes and mountains without damaging them? These questions kept coming back to me, not a way to dampen my curiosity, but to re-examine the outlook I have towards existence. Einstein sort of states the same thing about making everything about intellect in the letter read on the occasion of 75th anniversary of the Ethical Culture Society in 1951. As you can read, for along this negative result, a positive aspiration and an effort for ethical moral configuration of our common time is of overriding importance. Here, no science can save us. I believe indeed that overemphasis on purely intellectual attitude, often directed solely to the practical and factual in our education, has led directly to the impairment of ethical values. We ought to have a holistic view that preserves the interconnectedness of things. When our mind is calm and when we fully appreciate what we have in the present moment, we realize the miracle of interconnectedness. A piece of bread in our hand becomes an ambassador of cosmos, since it contains sun, earth, flowers, humans, and everything in it. We shall know what to do and what not to do to preserve ourselves and others, since there are no longer others, and it's an optical delusion, as Einstein stated. Here, you can read from the slide that Einstein summarizes the intricate interconnectedness of our existence. How do I get out of this? I'm not able. Okay. But without deeper reflection, one knows from the daily life that one exists for other people. First of all, for those upon whose smiles and well-being our own happiness is wholly dependent, and then for many unknown to us, to whose destinies we are bound by the ties of sympathy. 100 times every day, I remind myself that my inner and outer life are based on the labors of some other men, living and dead, and that I must exert myself in order to give in the same measure as I have received and I'm still receiving. I'm strongly drawn to a frugal life, and I'm often oppressively aware that I'm engrossing an undue amount of labor of my fellow men. I also believe that a simple and unassuming life is good for everybody physically and mentally. Here, as you can read from this slide, the web extends way beyond humans because we are dependent upon our ancestors, our culture, our environment, and finally on our planet. Einstein emphasized on simplicity, not only in physical and mathematical theories, but also as a way of life to transcend the endless greed. I would end this with one last saying from Einstein when he was in Japan. Instead of giving a tip to a courier boy in Japan, Einstein wrote this small piece of advice on the letterhead of Imperial Hotel Tokyo and asked him to preserve it because he guessed that his writings will become very valuable in auction due to his Nobel Prize. As he surmised, this note was sold for $1.5 million, and it reads, it was originally written in German, but it reads in English: a calm and modest life brings more happiness than the pursuit of success combined with constant restlessness. Living each moment with simplicity and the view of interconnectedness, we recognize that each moment is a miracle. We will find a way out. The web of interconnectedness is pristine. When we look deeply, we realize that we are not in it, but we are it. Thank you very much. And I would be happy to take some questions.
No questions?
I'm actually sorry because when I was planning the talk, Renate said that it should not be technical at all. So I did not go in more into the complexity of the notion of interconnectedness and so on. I kept it as minimum as possible, but now in questions, I'm very happy to interact and speak with you about anything that I am of some use about. And I hope, of course, you know about these things way better than me. But I'm just sharing my experience, what I had in Einstein House.
So I would like to know, Shyam, what are you doing now? Are you working more to study what Einstein was thinking and doing? or are you working on other philosophical things and bring them into science? What is your, what are you working on right now?
Well, I have published a lot of at least 7 books in philosophy and science, but if I did not go to Einstein House, I would have produced a lot of more philosophical and scientific work. But after the stay of Einstein House, as I mentioned in the lecture, it was quite a blind spot that unveiled in front of my eyes, because I realized that the more and more I keep producing knowledge, I'm not exactly sure about the immediate relevance of this, especially when the Earth is in crisis. So I'm trying to see something, how I can use this knowledge that I gained in terms of sustainability, or what I can do in science that is connected to sustainability. At more of at the core of it, because a lot of scientists do know that Earth needs help, but they might be working on carbon emissions and so on. But I also feel that a lot of it has to do with our attitude that we take. It's to do with our phenomenology of our perception, the way we look at the world. So it has to do with our inner sustainability. So I'm trying to see how a scientific view can also produce this sort of subjective notion and awareness of the world, and how I can use this objective means of understanding the universe to make it more subjective and also include the environment in our exploration of science. So I'm just trying to do that in some opportunities that I may get. But right now I teach at a high school like before. So yeah.
But I mean, I find it so interesting, these quotes and research that you did on Einstein to find out what he was thinking about the environment. Are you looking more into that, or could you provide us this information? Because I think it's something that would be very interesting for us to include in the Discovery Center.
Yes. I am doing research on what Einstein has thought about, because Einstein was a very great man, but he also had a lot of flaws, and he never felt ashamed to reveal them. He also thought a lot about these issues, which were very unconventional in his time. And I very much got drawn to this fact that what a man he was to actually think way out of his culture, to foresee a lot of things in the world. So I feel he has his notion about environment, his thoughts about humanity have been largely ignored. Anybody I know who speaks about Einstein mostly think of him as a physicist, maximum as a photographer's model, as Einstein has thought. A lot of people in Germany one day told that, oh, I have seen this man in some photograph on some fashion magazine. So people know Einstein more as a physicist and a photographer's model, and he himself told a lot of people that he was just a model, because it was too hard for him to explain his complex relativity. So he told a lot of people when they asked, oh, I saw you somewhere, he said he was just a photographer's model. And at some point, it was so interesting that people were so against Einstein, and they tried very much to suppress his work, that nobody knew that Einstein was responsible for the physics that he invented. At one point in Potsdam, he signed up to for a violin orchestra. He wanted to play violin to raise funds for Jewish children, and he played Beethoven and Bach and Mozart, little pieces of them somewhere in the hall. And after the concert was of course completely full, and the tickets were sold. One man who did not know that Einstein was a physicist came out and told other people that, I think the concert was full and the man played okay, but I was shocked to see that the tickets were so expensive. He was an average player, and I had no idea why there was so much of craze about this violin player. So Einstein had this sort of a very mixed tendencies, that he was not known, but he was also very much known. He was very private because he felt that nobody understood him, but at the same time, everybody understood him. So I think his life was a very interesting set of these dualities. So I want to know Einstein more than his physics. And I think since your Discovery Center, I think a lot of people are invested to bring out this dream of Einstein. I really feel that Einstein, his views on nature, especially an environment, should be included. Because I already see that one of the pillars of Discovery Center is his views on pacifism and humanism and what he thought about society. But I think Einstein also has thought a lot about nature and its impact and the way we can exist in harmony with nature. So I feel this is a very interesting topic that anybody who is reading about Einstein should know about. So I'm also trying in my own ways to know a little bit about it.
Yeah, I think that's a really important input for us. And people are nodding here and thinking, yes. I really think we need to follow up for perhaps to get more of the information that you have so that we could investigate more about the part of Einstein and the environment. Yeah, so one of the questions here is, when are you planning on coming back to Germany?
I feel that Germany is a lovely country, especially because a lot of people there are seriously considering about environment. This is something I think Asia has to still catch up, because I mean, if some of you believe in Maslow's law of hierarchy, most of the places in Asia, they are still struggling to get their basic needs. So the issue of environment did not hit them as often right now. But in Germany, I think a lot of people are seriously considering to do everything to protect the nature. And Germany is, in this sense, very beautiful, because people can voice their opinions, and people are very open to learn something new. This is my impression of Germany, because when I came to Germany, a lot of people told me who are from US that, oh, Germany, people are quite cold, they are very opinionated. But I felt exactly opposite. I felt that even a lot of very senior professors, people who are million times more experienced than me and knowledgeable than me, they paid a lot of attention, listening very carefully to what the other people have to say. And they thought a lot about this, and they are very sincere when they say something, and they're very honest and to the point. So some people in US, I think it comes out as being cold, but I think they're just to the point, and I like it very much about Germans. So I want to very much come back. So now I'm seeing about some opportunities that I can get, but I had a very unconventional background. I teach at a school, but I did a lot of research and published various books in various domains. So I'm not able to exactly find a matching fit. So if I get an opportunity, I'm very much planning to return to Germany by the end of this year. So yeah.
Okay.
Are there any other questions from other people? There's some in the room here, but is there anybody else online who has any questions?
No, not at the moment. No, thank you.
We're planning with the association to go to Caputh in the beginning of October. If there was any way that we could synchronize or figure out some way that you can get some fellowship or scholarship or something to come to Germany, we're going to be there on the 1st of October or around the 3rd. Yeah, the 3rd of September and the 2nd of house, right? And the 2nd of October, yeah, in Caputh. Okay. So may I ask, you're a teacher, what subjects do you teach?
I teach, as of now, I used to teach math and physics, and I also teach a little bit of biology at the school level, but most of my work concerns about encouraging students to do research projects at the school, because in school they learn a lot of stuff, but they cannot, for instance, publish a paper in some journal. So I work with students individually to do some research projects and get their research published. So I have been doing that in school in Mumbai.
And how old are the school students? What age?
These are in their 14 to 17 years old.
Okay, so
Yeah,
more or
they are
less high
secondary.
school level.
Yeah.
So quite advanced students then,
Yeah, quite advanced students. Yeah.
What was the age?
14 to 17.
Oh, 16, 17.
Yeah. Right.
And I would like to get, one thing struck me that you said that I was also I've been to Mumbai and I could totally relate to what you said about when you went to Caputh the first time and you see this nature around you that doesn't exist in Mumbai. How was that? Can you tell us a little bit about how did you feel the first time when you were there and you were walking through the nature and through the forest? I'm very interested.
It was quite wonderful and also scary for me because in Mumbai there is no time where you cannot hear noise. All through the night there are cars and traffic here.
Yeah.
So my brain got used to sleep with the noise. So in the beginning, it's completely pin drop silence in Caputh. There is no human living around, and there's barely a car that passes once in a while. Most of the houses in Caputh are owned by older generation who live in Potsdam, and they just come there to just drink tea in the weekend. So most of the houses are empty, and I just stayed alone there. And it was very scary because at 1 o'clock, there is no sun anymore. And it was completely dark. And this wind that was coming through the windows was making a howling sound. So it was unimagiable for me. I had to actually, it was so funny. I actually had to turn on lot of sounds in iPad. I opened, for instance, a busy street in Mumbai, a video on YouTube. And I played it when I sleep because my brain was so programmed to listening to noise when I sleep that I could not sleep for a while. And I realized, this is very interesting because it was contrary. I thought peace is very calming. It was contrary because a lot of us are so used to a lot of devices and something being outside of us. Suddenly, when we get the peace one day, we thought about, we are scared. We don't know what to do with that piece. So first 1 week was very hard. So but later I got used to the forest. I used to go out in the dark to get accustomed with this darkness and also with this calmness. And after that, I was completely mesmerized, and I could just live there 6 months without meeting anybody and just be all alone by myself. So it was amazing. But then again, coming back to Mumbai after 6 months, my brain again had to do a switch, which is again that sort of a scenario.
What such a difference!
Yeah,
really incredible.
It's amazing. I think Germany has a lot of forests, but the Caputh forest is very, very strange in that sense. It has a very different vibe to it, and Einstein loved it so much. So when you all go to Caputh to visit Einstein house, maybe you take a walk in the forest. You remind yourself that Einstein was walking here for long periods of time, and you see a lot of things that why he thought about the things that he thought during it. And this is very true for a lot of ideas. For instance, we use in physics and in mathematics the Cartesian coordinates. In a graph we plot x and y axis. And the Descartes, who first came up with this idea, he came up with this idea because he was feeling very cold, and he had a lot of issues with his lungs. So he was always spending a lot of time sitting in a heater. The olden days heater was very different. So in that position, he saw a fly moving in the air, and he thought that to find out the position of this fly, I need 2 numbers. So I think if the cold was not there, if the winter was not there, if the fly was not there, we would not have had maybe coordinate axis. So I realized how important is it, the place that we live, for the discoveries that we make. So maybe when you walk in the place that Einstein walked, you realize a lot of things, that why he thought about the things. Maybe if Einstein lived in Mumbai, I'm not sure if he he would be for sure a very different man. He would make his theories also very different. So this is a very important question in cognitive science, that how much it's the sociology of science, how much our environment impacts the scientific theories that we make.
Absolutely, in my opinion. Absolutely. Thank you.
Shyam, you're really a Renaissance man, so I would like to know what is your goal for the future? I mean, are you going to continue your work in philosophy and science, or you want to go more in the direction environment? What do you have plans or ideas?
I realize that I want to definitely move into sustainability and environment, as I mentioned, because I can no longer think about these terms. I realize that it's very important to do science, but I feel somewhere there is a blind spot in the method of science, and I think this blind spot also is very useful because it leads to the representation, because it's an interesting feature of the map. In the map, you cannot know where you are in the map. A map has a limited feature of representation. For instance, in map, you don't know how this map is positioned. You need a different coordinate axis to show how the map is related to the world. So there's always a blind spot in our cognition that helps us discover what we want. But in the method of science, I think there is a little bit of a blind spot that we make, and we think that we are living in a universe that is completely objective, completely outside of our desires, our emotions, and so on. And it's an objective world that we want to experiment. And even if you read in school, you use the word, for instance, an observer. An observer is a word that who just takes input from the universe. But I like Einstein's colleague's word, John Wheeler, who used the word participant. I think when we use speak about experiment to young students, we need to use the word participant. We are participants of the experiment more than an observer, because we are co-creating the reality of what we want to observe along with what we are actually
participant observer.
Yeah, so participant is a better word. So I feel that somehow our science has to now take into consideration that we don't live in a cold, objective, dry universe, and somehow we have to integrate our science in such a way that the science that we produce should preserve this interconnectedness of the universe. Because I realized with the last book that I published on metaphors and analogies, I realized how much our metaphors that we use in science shape our notion of the world. For instance, when we think that universe is made of atoms, we have a different sociological outlook than when it's made of waves. So all of these things are very connected in cognitive science, in our cognition, but we don't realize it. We just completely filter them out for the ease, and we think, okay, these are unconnected things and it's very easy to work. For instance, in school, you teach environment in 1 hour and you teach physics in different hour. So students think, okay, this is environment, and after that they sign out of that class and they go into physics and they learn about physics. But reality does not work like that. Physics may tell that when you fire a bullet, it goes with certain velocity, but physics does not tell whether it should hit a human or whether it should hit a wall. Physics has no connection to this sort of a thing. So in reality, everything is connected. Physics is connected to biology and to law and to economics and so on. But whereas the way it's taught in the schools, we think these are different subjects and one learns about it and comes out and learns a different subject. So I want to work somewhere at the interface of science and sustainability to see how we can foster our cognitive processes to understand the method of science, because I think science is a very powerful tool. And if it's done as Einstein also thought, it can provide a lot into the nature of reality.
So are you planning on publishing your work on Einstein and environment?
Yes, I really wish to do that. I really wish to do that. And I also want to publish a little bit about what Einstein thought about education, because he had very unique views on education, which were also, I feel, a little bit are ignored at larger scale, because everybody knows him only for physics. But I think school teachers can learn a lot about his view of education and also his neighbor's view on education. I think the principal who stayed next to Einstein House, she also had a very unique curriculum, who stayed inside Einstein House. So maybe when you visit there, you can also learn a little bit about the school next to it and see what are her thoughts for her time, because it's a very unique school. And I also feel Einstein and her spoke a little bit about education, though nobody knew about it. But I am sure they're neighbors and they met each other for a long time. So I think they must have conversed a little bit about what should be taught in schools. And I feel it's very important that Einstein's view on these are more emphasized than on his physics, because his physics is so widely known.
I think there is a body of work about Einstein and his view on education, because he did not like his German education, how it was done. He wanted a more enlightened type of education, and I think there's more body of work on that. So
yeah, but people do only know about one essay that he published called The Aims of Education. But I think he gave a lot of very tiny lectures to the students who asked him to, who invited him to speak at their thing. I think if somebody somehow combines all of this and come up with a pedagogy of what Einstein thought about education, or maybe if your Discovery Center has a bandwidth, maybe about this is one of the pedagogical model of how Einstein thought that kids should be explained, both about science and also about ethics. I think that's also very unique idea about this thing. But I'm primarily looking at opportunities in terms of sustainability and science, and maybe Einstein's work somewhere related to that. But I think your Discovery Center, when it comes up, it will have a huge impact of teaching students about the theories of Einstein in more visualizable ways. It's done, of course, with internet, but nothing like coming and visiting and a model in life. But I also feel that along with this, if you can somehow incorporate the responsibility that Einstein always spoke about, that learning science also entails that we also learn about our responsibilities towards the nature. I think that would be wonderful, that young students of Germany need to go back and see that doing science is okay, but we have to do something about collectively about our environment, not just in terms of external things like carbon emission, which is wonderful, but somehow a change in our inner perspectives about the world and so on, which is what Einstein also has mentioned about. Because in that quote, I did not give a complete quote, but Einstein does say later on that he's not scared about the technology and so on. That's just one aspect, but he's more connected with the cold and dead views that this sort of ideas about overpraising intellect can do, because we can reduce everything into electrons, protons, and neutrons, but we may end up in a cold universe. We have very tough view to get back our morals and ethics back. So Einstein was scared about that more than the fact that the technology may destroy us. So
interesting, yeah. Are there any more questions? We're sitting in a room together, and we were celebrating here together with Renata and Franz have brought us food and stuff to celebrate. But we would also really like to thank you for taking out the time to give us a talk, give us some of your wisdom, especially about your experiences in Caputh and the idea of Einstein and the environment. And we will communicate offline, because we're going to send you one of our Einstein plaques as a thank you, the one with the brick from Einstein's house as a thank you for taking the time to give us your ideas. And we'll be in contact, because I really believe that the ideas that you said here, yep.
Oh yes, that's lovely.
Maybe it will inspire some of your wonderful students to go into science and to use it for good environmental sustainability effects. But let's stay in contact, because the ideas that you have here are very interesting. Yes. It gives us a lot of impulse for us and to think about how we can incorporate perhaps some of them in the Discovery Center. And if there's no other questions, do you have any questions for us?
I don't have any questions, because I think in the call that I had with you all, you have all answered. You have answered everything that I thought about the center. But I'm very happy to see you all. I never met most of you, but you have been very patient and very kind. And I hope I made some sense, because the notion of interconnectedness is a very unique idea, and a lot of people think it's just a mystical sort of an idea, but I think it's a very pragmatic tool, as close to reality as science is. So I hope we give more of our attention and our thought into this. And I thank you all for giving this time, and I hope it was
Welcome. Yeah.
worth your time. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will stay.
Thank you.
You
made a lot of sense. You made a lot of sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, I don't see you. I don't see.
I don't have a camera on my computer.
Oh,
and
so
I'm in the office, and I'm in my office, so nobody's supposed to see me.
Okay.
Okay, I get it. So you are like the voice from the sky. That,
Okay.
Exactly.
Yes,
Exactly.
that's
Thank you very
okay.
much.
Bye bye. Enjoy
Bye.
the
Thank you a
rest
lot.
of the day.
Bye.
Bye.
And have peace. Bye bye.
Mm.